So, hello everyone, and welcome to the first ever SYP Chairs Q&A. I'm Amy, I am the UK Vice Chair of the SYP, and I'll be your host for tonight's evening, where hopefully you will be able to find out a bit more about how all our different committees run and what events we've got coming up and what projects we've been working on behind the scenes. This is a Q&A, so do feel free to add your questions in the chat window as the night goes on, and we'll sort of pick them up and have a section at the end as well. We will also be answering some of your questions that some of you submitted when you registered. Just be aware though that this event is specifically about how the SYP runs and its plans, so we won't be directly answering any questions relating to more general sort of careers things like CV advice and that sort of thing. If you want to tweet along with tonight's event, the hashtag is SYPUK. And our communications officer for the SYP UK, Sophie, will also be tweeting along tonight if you want to catch up later, and this event will be recorded and put on YouTube afterwards. Okay, so before we get into tonight, I just want to explain a little bit what the SYP is for those of you who might not be as familiar. The Society of Young Publishers is an organisation who supports and sort of informs and connects people who are either looking to get into publishing or who are in the early stages of their career and looking to sort of just generally learn a bit more or kind of progress. The organisation as a whole is chaired by Carl Smith, who I believe is actually watching tonight, and some of you may know him better as that publishing blogger. Together, him and I oversee what's known as the UK committee. The UK committee is based all around the UK, as the name suggests, and we sort of look after things that affect the organisation as a whole. So there'll be things like looking after our partners, producing our quarterly magazine in print, and also doing things to do like the branding. And we also act as a central link for the regional chairs and branches who are joining us tonight, and they each look after a specific location within the UK and Ireland. So why don't we start with some introductions? So should we start with London?
Hi, I am the Deputy Chair of SYP London, so I'm filling in for Elle, who's the chair. And at SYP London, we cover London and South East. So we have London, Greater London, both the Sussexes, West and East Sussex, sorry, Kent, Essex, Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire. At SYP London, we organize a series of events. We are sort of divided into an events team, social media, student outreach, and student liaison. Student liaison does workshops, which many of you must have attended online or seen recordings of. And we have events team who on alternate years plan conference. So this year we are planning the conference, and yeah, details will be up soon. Our social media team supports our other teams with graphics, social media posts, and obviously manages our social media accounts. We also have a newsletter, so we have a social media officer for that. And yeah, am I missing anything? Yeah, and we have 2 deputy chairs this year, so we kind of plug in wherever is required.
And we also have April.
Yeah, hi. So I'm co-chair for SYP Oxford. I work with the brilliant Esther, who is the other co-chair, and a team of really dedicated students and professionals who focus on publishing activities in Oxford and the wider area of Oxfordshire. So it's quite straightforward and simple area to summarise. Obviously, Oxford is a very publishing rich area. We've got a lot of publishers in that area, and we very regularly run events in collaboration with professionals who work there, and also with students from Oxford Brookes. We do a wide variety of events and activities for our membership. In particular, we have a podcast which launched this year. We also have a couple of really innovative book video series on booksellers and storytellers and on diversity and diverse voices in publishing. And we regularly have a book club other speaker events, skill sessions, and you can really just watch this space by following our channels, because we regularly update people there and on the newsletter.
Great. And then we have Liz from SYP North.
Hello. I feel like I've not got as much to say as Oxford and London here, but we are a relatively small team. It is a brand new committee this year. I'm the chair of the North branch, and all of the committee is brand new this year. So we are starting off slowly but surely with our Northern Powerhouse events. We recently had our first in the event series with Harper North and Hachette Children's, and that was really good to see so much excitement about publishing coming up north. Regarding the North as an area, we will probably tweet our area at the end about where we're going to cover for the mentorship scheme, because North is a very large area, and people get very particular about where they are. So we will finalise that after this. But yeah, so because we are a new committee, we're slower than the others on this one, but we do have a book club that is every other month. Our book club is actually next week. We are doing Saltwater, which obviously is Portico, so you know, flying the flag, fully northern. But yes, we've got a series of events happening hopefully at the end of this year, which will be announced soon. And our newsletter is currently getting a revamp because it has been non-existent for a short while. So yes, that is me.
Yeah, I feel like it's a great time to be in publishing in the North at the moment, with just so many big companies moving and sort of new courses popping up.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, it's very exciting. So hello to any of the students that have joined us, because I know we've got quite a few universities that are new to publishing this year. So if you're here, hello.
And then just going even norther, we have Scotland as well.
Hi, I'm Sarah Barnard. I'm the co-chair of SYP Scotland. My other co-chair is Sonali Misra, and she has what she called a Viva thingy today, which sounds very, very important. So that's why she's not here today. Scotland, the Scotland Committee, we cover Scotland. That's quite an easy one, but that's a very big place, obviously. We have a spring conference every year, except for this year because of COVID-19. That's our major event, but we run events throughout the year, events and schemes like the mentorship scheme, aimed at helping young professionals and students wanting to get into publishing or develop their careers in publishing. We obviously work very closely with the Stirling and Napier publishing courses, a bit like I think Oxford has the really close relationships with the publishing courses. Yeah, we also, our committee year, as it were, starts in April because we have the conference in the spring. So it'd be very scary to start that as a fresh committee and then launch this huge event. So that's why our year is a bit different from everybody else's. So we're quite an old committee at this point in time, more than halfway through. So we've got a few things going on. We've also just started our book club as well, inspired by the other branches, and all sorts of other online events, which we also have a newsletter, and you can keep an eye on our Twitter and Instagram and stuff to find out more.
Yeah, and then we have our newest SYP branch, Jo.
Hi, yeah. So I'm the SYP Southwest, which similarly to North is an area much debated. But we cover Wales, Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, Dorset, Avon, Gloucestershire, Wiltshire, Shropshire. So area, and we particularly love the fact that we get to champion obviously the student communities from Plymouth, Exeter, Falmouth, Bristol, Bath, Cardiff, Aberystwyth. So that's really important to us. So hopefully there are some of those students out there tonight. We are, as Amy said, the newest branch of the SYP, and we started back in 2018, and we've run events since then. Hopefully some of you might have been along to our careers events. And you might have attended the Publishing for Everyone online convention that we ran in May, which was really an opportunity to kind of bring a bit of the wider publishing community together, but also with a bit of a focus on regional publishing, and particularly the Southwest. There is a lot of vibrancy in the Southwest in publishing, and it's not talked about as much, but we're really proud that hopefully we can open that up a bit more through the SYP and show people that there's some great opportunities here to get both into book publishing, magazine publishing across all of the different sectors, and we're always really happy to answer any questions about that, because I know there are a lot of people who think they can't get a job outside of London or Oxford, and not to say that we're it's brilliant and wonderful, but for those of you who are desperately wanting to stay in your regions, I think that's something that we're all really pleased that we're able to help you do. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think regional sort of diversity is something that we're all quite strong supporters of. I know that a few of us here have actually come from areas that you wouldn't kind of necessarily associate with the kind of traditional publishing hub. Like I know myself, and I think April and Sarah were sort of from the Midlands, sort of moved out, and so yeah, that's something that I'm sure we'll cover tonight. So just to also add, we do have a branch technically in Ireland. It has not been as active this year, but we will be doing the mentorship scheme there, and we are in talks to kind of get that properly started and running up again properly next sort of towards the end of this year and into next year. So if anyone's watching and you currently live in Ireland, or maybe you're just planning to relocate in the next few months, do keep an eye out for updates on that, and also for when applications open later this year. And I guess on that note, we should start with the big one tonight, which will be the mentorship scheme, which as hopefully a lot of people know by now, rather excitingly, we are for the first time this year expanding that. So we're covering the entirety of the UK and Ireland. So yeah, woo, exciting. Now, Tanu, you actually with London already had your applications this year, and I know that you've chosen your mentees, and you also had a very exciting launch of a brand new stream to your mentorship scheme. Did you want to talk a little bit about how that's going, sort of what stood out to you maybe about the kind of mentees that you did end up picking, and sort of just generally how everything's going?
Yeah, I'd love to give an update, but just before that, quickly, we do have a book club and a student outreach team. I just felt like all the branches have described it so well. We do all of that.
Yeah,
okay?
No, I feel like I didn't really go into the UK community study, but I will be like talking about individual people on there.
So yeah, the mentorship scheme started this year. Obviously, we were in the lockdown, so it started virtually, and we couldn't announce it as we usually do at London Book Fair. But we divided it into 3 streams: SYP, Into, Ahead, and Launch. So Into and Ahead were already established by 2 years ago, and we started Launch this year because there are a lot of people doing it on their own, and we thought it was important to have mentorship for freelancers and people who just want to get out there and monetize whatever they're doing creatively. So the current update is that all mentees, the 30 mentees, are in touch with their mentors, and they're getting lots of feedback. There's a lot of discussion on career progression, and they claim that it is already very rewarding to be in the scheme. So yeah, all around positive updates.
Yeah, and I hear like this year you also gave feedback to like all the candidates, and that's something I think really useful to know. It's a very common complaint with when you're looking for jobs, that you just hear nothing or get something so vague.
Yes, I mean, that's, kudos to Elle, because she made it her mission to respond to each one of the applicants, and we had loads. So we did a blind application where my co-deputy chair, Maliha, and I helped Elle to sort of do the process, but she individually responded to all. So I know it took time. I know there were people wondering where the update was, so we really apologize for that. But as we're doing SYP after a full-time job, it does take slightly longer. But the schemes, yeah, well, for next year, we hope to start it in spring, as we usually do, hoping that all goes well and we can announce it again at London Book Fair. But let's see how that all goes. But yeah, any questions you have for London mentorship schemes or anything, please put that down. Answer as I can.
Cool. So April and Sarah, I know Oxford and Scotland have previously run mentorship schemes in the past. But one of the questions we had during the registration period for this event was sort of how does a mentorship differ from, say, an internship or like other kind of one-to-one interactions, say maybe coaching or like other kind of conversations you can have?
No, it's a really good question. Shall I have a go at answering it first? Okay, great. Well, I would say that the two are very different, because an internship would be, you know, getting a trial run at a job, essentially, like getting that everyday experience of, you know, in normal times going into an office, in COVID times, you know, being in a virtual office potentially, getting to do the publishing work, and, you know, through that you get a sense of, is this an industry you want to be a part of? What does the job involve? And you can really finesse, you know, which department, what sort of position you would like to be in when it comes to applying for a full-time position. You know, and it's something that you can also put on your CV as work experience. I would say that a mentorship's different from that in that it's not doing a job. It's not something that you would be able to say, here's my title, and I did it for this length of time. But it's more an opportunity to have a connection with someone in the industry, to get your questions answered, to really broaden your understanding, get a sense of, is this the sort of industry you want to be in, or maybe even get tailored advice on how things are going with your job applications. If you're an entry-level person, if you're a mid-level person, it can also be about planning long-term for your career. So I would say, you know, to give a practical example, someone could have done an internship, and then when they have a mentor, they could say to their mentor, this was how things were run in the editorial office that I worked in. Is that experience true of the equivalent role in academic or trade? And, you know, really getting the opportunity to benefit from the knowledge of somebody who's in the industry, know how things work, and is really there to help you in the scope of the mentorship scheme.
Yeah, and I think certainly when you're maybe already working, it can be definitely very useful to have someone to talk to who doesn't work in the same company as you and has a bit different perspective, especially as you say, if you're looking to move into a different area, perhaps. Sarah, do you have anything to add? Any sort of?
Yeah, I would agree with everything that April says. I wrote in my notes that it's tailored, which I think is a word you also used, April. I think the thing is, there's no kind of like one set mentorship program in the way that a company might have one set internship program. You know, a person comes in and everyone is like assigned the same tasks and all of that. It's a completely individualized relationship between you and your mentor, and you know, we'll set out kind of some sort of structure for that relationship, but really it's between the two of you to work out how you can best benefit from that relationship, and what you can learn from each other, because it is a two-way learning thing.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's something that people often overlook when they think about applying to be, like, say, a mentee, but it's definitely, like you say, mutually beneficial. So just to talk a bit more about sort of the schemes that are kind of going to be opening the applications later this year, and very soon, in fact, I'm just going to sort of run through some of the details which are common to all of us. And so hopefully I won't be talking too long here. You'll have a chance to kind of speak about your own individual schemes. So for all the kind of areas that aren't covered by London, I feel like the most simplest way of putting it, we'll be opening applications on September the 28th, and they'll close on October the 8th. This information will, of course, all be on the website, so like, don't worry if you're kind of frantically trying to jot all this down and remember it for later. It will be made public and very clear. As sort of April and Sarah said, this is very much a sort of tailored to you opportunity. So in the application process, we'll sort of be asking really just to find out a bit more about you, and also what goals and sort of what you really hope to achieve from the mentorship scheme. So this could be that maybe you want to get in, but you want someone to kind of help with like applications, or sort of even maybe sort of help you narrow down, like maybe you're interested in publicity, but you're not quite sure maybe if, say, children's or adult or academic is for you, and you want somebody maybe to help you work out the best strategy for that. But it is very open, and we're hoping to sort of let everyone know the outcome of the application sort of around early November. And we will be revealing our mentors in a sort of staggered announcement in the week commencing 21st of September. And I know, sort of talking across the kind of committees, we've all got quite a broad mix. So I'd say sort of a mixture of like editorial, publicity, kind of audio, and just really a wide range, I think a really good spread. And that's also when we'll be confirming sort of how many places there are available under each branch. So the other thing I want to say is that the mentorship schemes will be open to both members and non-members. And that was really about, because we want to make this as accessible as possible. We don't want to make you feel like you have to pay to join us just to be able to like be with a chance of getting a place. So we wanted it to be really accessible. A common question we had was how location would affect your application. And to that, I would say it's really about who is assessing your application and kind of which committee will be handling sort of mentors and mentees to the kind of one that you're applying for. So if you're in Leeds, for example, your application will be handled by Liz and her committee. But if you're in Bristol, Joe would be having a look at you. And so that's really sort of how location is. Another question that we had was sort of how the pairings would work. For all the regional branches, you would be paired with somebody in your, I'm going to try and rephrase that. So for the regional branches, you would be paired with a mentor who is based in the region that the branch covers. So if you're applying to be an Oxford mentee, your mentor would also be based in the Oxford area. And same with Scotland, if you were Scottish mentee, you would be paired with a mentor in Scotland. The UK, we are a bit more flexible with that. So for instance, if you're based, say, in Leicester, you could be paired with somebody who works in Cambridge. I know there's a bit of variance between the different branches. So some people will be accepting applicants for people who are looking to get in to the industry and don't currently have a job, whereas some people will be taking applications from people who have one but are maybe looking to progress. And so I think on that note, we're going to just hear a bit more about each chair, about the kind of more details of their scheme. And I think we'll start with Oxford.
Sure. Well, I would say that our scheme has been going on for a few years now. This is our third year. It's branded as Ox Forward, and within Ox Forward, we have two streams. So like Amy was just saying then, we'll be accepting applications from people who are looking to get into publishing, and we'll also accept applications from people who will be looking to get ahead in publishing. So really, it will be open to people who are looking for their first job or who are looking for the next 2 or 3. And the mentors that we will be kind of offering on that scheme will therefore have a mix of different experiences. So there'll be some people who are newer to the industry, who have more recent experience of getting that job in editorial, production, marketing, whichever function it is. But we will also have some more senior mentors as well who can really be advising on, long-term planning for your career. You've got that job, how do you work to develop yourself and to either get promoted or, make yourself competitive when new opportunities come up. And that's something that we feel really privileged to be doing, because it's a society of young publishers, but really it's about people in the first 10 years of their career. So it's good for us to have the resource to offer that as well. So yeah, regardless of your experience, if you're interested, you should apply.
And I think that's the really important thing you mentioned about the society of young publishers specifically, because I think we do have this stereotype, it's a bit unfortunate, but there are no age restrictions for the mentorship scheme. You don't have this age. We know that people, for instance, like career switch when they're sort of a bit older, then it's not like everyone's just straight out of uni, and not everyone, of course, did go to uni. So if you didn't, this is just to draw on some of the questions we had sort of right now and also before the event. It doesn't matter if you're applying to a mentorship scheme and you're looking to get in, whether you're currently studying an undergraduate or a postgraduate. Also, if you're studying full-time or working full-time at the moment, the meetings with your mentees are very flexible and you choose the time that suits you. So there is a lot of kind of openness and kind of flexibility around that. I think we'll next hear from, Next here from maybe Sarah. Could you maybe sort of say what you're looking for in applications as well? Like what do you think would sort of stand out to you, or advice you have as well, people applying?
So we just do, we do the into stream. We don't really run an ahead stream. So mostly we're looking for applications from people who, you know, have maybe done an internship or anything, you know, or a work placement. Basically, I think the hard and fast rule is people who haven't yet got their first full-time job in publishing. So yeah, a mix of students and professionals from other careers and anything like that. And because I think it's a little bit more fluid, the publishing companies in Scotland, there's so many people who are just kind of two-man bands, but we've also got a massive academic publisher. So yeah, we've got all sorts of different mentors with all sorts of different experiences. So we're fairly open in that respect. And what we're looking for in applications, it's just good to have an understanding of what you're looking for. If you know what sort of department, if you've really got your heart set on a department that you want to work in, then that's really useful to know. But it's also really useful to know if you're open to kind of more general advice, because a lot of people looking to get into the industry might, you know, how would you know if you haven't already had some level of experience? So, and a lot of our mentors have kind of worked in lots of different positions, or as I was saying, a lot of the companies are very small, so we'll have experience in all sorts of different departments. So yeah, lots of it's all to play for. We're open to any applications as long as you kind of know what you are looking for.
Great. What about you, Joanna? You've got obviously the first year that you've had a mentorship scheme. It's quite going into the deep end quite. But I know you've got some really good mentors lined up from different types of companies.
Yeah, we do. And similarly, we are going to run both streams, so into and ahead, just because of the mentors that we have. They have quite a range of experience within the industry. So, you know, there are some who are in sort of starting out more junior positions who will be great at giving you that kind of more first-hand experience of what it was like being in that interview, and how did I actually get my foot through the door, and what did I do with my CV, because they'll actually remember all that stuff. And then some people who are much more at senior management level, or who have held very senior management level positions within publishing, who can actually give you, how do I take that next career step? Where do I want to go? What do I do? I feel like I've hit the ceiling. What should I be thinking about? How do I ask for a pay rise? How do I, you know, deal with complex projects, etc.? So those kind of questions that you might have, we've got a way to suit that. And in terms of what I guess would make an application stand out for us, obviously you've got to be passionate about wanting to work in Southwest. And, you know, have a really good kind of understanding of what that means, what are the kind of publishers around here. But also I think what do you want out of this? You know, if you enter a mentor-mentee relationship, actually you want to make it a really valuable experience for you to get the most in terms of the coaching and help that that person is giving up their time, you know, to give you. So I think having some clear kind of aspirations of what this kind of relationship might actually help you with would be a really good thing to articulate in terms of your application. And other than that, you know, I think just a kind of open mind to the process, because, you know, definitely in my experience, if you get the opportunity to be coached at any point in your career, it can be incredibly rewarding and even potentially life-changing. So opening yourself up to that is a really good thing to do.
Yeah, I think that kind of idea of being specific, I think is particularly important. I know we often describe, when you think about goals, as them being sort of SMART goals, or something that you know you can sort of measure how far along you are in sort of achieving those, or whether you have, you know, ticked that one off list, and also that they're sort of feasible within the time period that you do have to work on them. So with the mentorship schemes, and this is true across all the branches, you would get 4 40-minute meetings with your mentor, and there will also be like a sort of social mixer event between the mentees and mentors. So you're not just kind of having these one-to-one meetings, you are also kind of being part of like a smaller, wider group. And I know, Tanya, I know in London quite often your mentees do often like band together and they sort of support each other within that kind of community. It's not just about the one-to-one interactions.
Yeah, definitely. We do. I mean, in previous years, we had socials and we would get all the mentors and mentees in one place and sort of have everyone support each other. So sometimes another mentor would, you know, give advice to a mentee. So it was well connected. Obviously, during COVID, everything has been virtual, but I do hear that, you know, the mentees who kind of have their own WhatsApp groups and sort of speak to each other. So that has been great to keep in touch.
Yeah, and Joe, with the eligibility kind of regionally, you're like not just the southwest of England specifically, you also cover Wales as well, don't you?
We do cover Wales as well, and I think that's really important. There's obviously a lot of indie publishers as well as academic publishers within Wales, and if you are studying publishing or any degree, I mean, I think there was a question on the chat about does it have to be an arts related degree? Not at all. Like, publishing loves people who do not have arts related degrees.
I don't.
Yeah. If you've got a degree in business, maths, science, languages, that's a biggie. Legal, you know, those things are really invaluable, and actually, you know, publishing loves people with transferable skills, so bringing those to the table is great. So if you're studying in Wales and you kind of think, what is this crazy amorphous thing of publishing, and you want to get into it, then this is a really good opportunity to actually kind of get some proper insight and guidance about how to go about doing that.
Yeah, and I think we're just going to hear from Liz now on the North and their mentorship plans.
Yeah, we are new to this. It's our first time we are running the mentorship scheme, so we are still learning as well. So apologies in advance if we're not as quick to the bat as everybody else. But yeah, we're hoping to run both streams. This is very new information. We do have a range of mentors across different, different experiences of their life and their career, and I think it's important to offer the option. Like we said, everyone has their own skills and everyone has their own journey into publishing, so it's only fair to offer that if we can. We do have a big range of indie presses and academics in the North. Obviously, we are new to having the big Heart for North announcement, and Hachette Children's obviously made their way. But we also have wonderful presses, Leeds, Sheffield, there's lots of them. So we are trying to pinpoint a few places to offer a range of different options for people on the mentorship, obviously. But we also have a few keen Northerners who are in London. So we are crossing that boundary slightly, just in the fact that we have Northerners that do want to help us, who have made their way to London, who have got experience in the North but are now working in London. So hopefully that's hopefully offers something for everyone. But yeah, we are, like I said, we are new to this, so we are a smaller mentorship scheme at the moment. But like Amy said, we will end up telling you how many places we have individually as a region thing. But yeah, I think that's it from me.
And is there anything in particular that you're looking for in people's applications?
I think, like everybody said, if you're passionate about why you want to do it and how it will help you, if you want some advice on how to move across, or if you are struggling in a certain area and you don't know where to go from there. And I think, like Joe said, there are differences. If you remember your interview last year, it's a bit different, or if you're 6 years ago and you've worked your way up, you have different advice for different people. And I do think it is, especially in the North, we've not, I say we, royal we, it's not often been accessible for all, because a lot of it has been London based. And I know a lot of people can't travel for many reasons and don't want to, and that is obviously absolutely fine. But it just to show that we do have option in the North. We are growing and we are big scene, and it's exciting to see a lot more. I don't know, it's a lot more about us everywhere now. So that's exciting. And I just think if you can show us why you want it, what this opportunity will do for you, then I think that's that's the basic really.
Yeah,
I think I can really add, because I've seen applications that have already come through, and so perhaps this would be useful for people who are thinking of applying now. The one thing we saw is that when people applied for a particular, let's say they wanted to be in editorial and wanted to apply, although they expressed a lot of passion to get in the industry, they did not tell us why they had chosen that particular stream. Alternately, we've had very clear applications, but not a clear or not an idea of what you would try to get from a mentor. So somehow we got the idea that, you know, some applications were just looking for jobs through mentors, and that's one thing that's, you know, it might lead to it, it might be a byproduct, it's not the result. The entire idea of having a mentor is, you know, it crosses jobs and internships. People who have mentors from 2 years ago from our scheme still are in touch with them, and it could be a lifelong sort of, you know, mentorship and relationship for you. So you do need to be clear in your application why a particular stream and what are you looking for. There's no right or wrong answer, but what are you looking from a mentor apart from a job? So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. And just to address some of the questions about locational eligibility in the Q&A that have come up. So as we sort of discussed, like each of you sort of are looking after the region essentially that is covered by your branch, but obviously there are a lot of regions that don't fit neatly into one of your categories. So some people, for instance, have asked, well, what if I'm in Leicester, or what if I'm in Birmingham? You know, what opportunities are there available for me? So those applications, you will have the option to apply for the mentorship scheme, and your application will be handled by the UK committee. The UK committee is only accepting applications from people who are looking to get in, who don't have a job yet but want to get in. And I feel like, especially right now, with a lot of people kind of moving home during kind of coronavirus, or the situation changing, I think location has been a bit more fluid. And although there is obviously like a bit of distinction between our branches, which will make kind of clear on the website, we are happy to let people kind of choose what their sort of main address is. So one of the questions we've had, for instance, is that I'm based in Birmingham, but I go to uni in Durham. And Liz, I presume that if they felt that Durham was their sort of main address, then they could quite happily apply to the Northern branch scheme. If you are unsure about which category you fall into, I would say send in your application through the UK committee, and then if we feel perhaps there's a branch that's more suited to you, we'll kind of redistribute as necessary. I think that's the same, because there's a bit of a blurred boundary, I know, between different regions, and I know we've had quite an intense debate between ourselves about where these regions fall, but we'll get there. And just to run through some other questions quickly. If you're working full-time, would a mentorship still be able to work? And absolutely. I think, as we said, with your one-to-one meetings, you have complete flexibility over when they happen. You agree on the times. So if you're working full-time, or maybe you have childcare issues that you need to consider, or even like you're studying and you can't meet at certain times, then there will be some flexibility between there, and all the meetings can happen virtually, so you don't have to be able to meet in person. You can just have a Zoom call or a Skype call. We've got, how long does the mentorship last? The kind of meetings will take place over a series of 6 months, but as Tanya said, quite often it's not a lot of mentors and mentees do stay in touch beyond that. Yeah, and again, we've got some similar questions. Sort of, I'm based at Northern University, but from the Isle of Wight, which region would apply to me? Again, we are kind of willing to kind of let people self-identify which region. If you're not sure, go for the UK, and we'll sort of reassess from there. I think that sort of hopefully covers most of the questions that have come in, unless you guys kind of spot any that kind of grab your eye. I know a lot are to do with regions, and we will make that super clear on the website. No, I think in that case, we will move on from the mentorship scheme, but if you do have questions, still feel free to keep them and we'll
Sorry, Amy, I think
yeah.
there are questions in the Q&A.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a question, what do you do as a mentee? And as a mentee, you'll be in touch with your mentor, as Amy said, in the duration of 6 months. It could be Skype calls or in person, if that's possible at all. And you'll be able to ask, if you're into a mentee, you'll be able to ask about job applications, CVs, streams, where your skills lie, what skills you might need to develop for your first role. With a head, you will be given advice on how do you move ahead, and if it's your first role and you want to get into a second role, you're looking for a promotion, or you just want advice on how to navigate your career from now that you've entered the publishing industry, you will be able to ask all those sorts of questions to your mentor. And obviously, looking at your mentor's background, you might be able to take advantage of their experience in work as well, as Joe has already given an example. I just saw that question. So.
Yeah. And is there anybody else sort of want to add any last kind of thoughts on mentorship for now?
I guess just to chime in on that as well, if you're speaking with someone who's got experience of a few different roles, whether it's they've moved around in a couple of different jobs or teams at one company, or they've actually got experience of other publishers as well, it really is a great opportunity to just demystify all these different areas. You've got this person who has maybe got an oversight of how the different industries work, whether that's education publishing or fiction. You've got people who really can compare experiences like for like, as in someone might be able to say, I was an editorial assistant in this department, and then I changed to this company and was an assistant editor there, and really just helping to broaden your understanding of the role, which obviously will help enormously when you apply for jobs, because I think something that is a barrier in publishing is the job titles in different teams, different companies. It can be difficult working out sometimes what's entry level, what would the role be, what are the key responsibilities. So really, if you've got all of those questions, or you just want to test out your knowledge, I think a chat with a mentor can be really illuminating in that way.
Definitely. I think having those sort of like personal connections and sort of being able to see individual career paths, especially at home, it can be a sort of lack of transparency in publishing around progression and different roles. Just to answer one of the Q&As, this mentorship scheme, we do open applications every year, and next year will be the same. If you're in Ireland, you can apply this year. It's the UK committee who will kind of assess your applications, but next year, hopefully, it will be covered by the SYP Ireland branch. I think we'll just move on from mentorship scheme for now, just where we do have a lot to cover, and just move on to sort of what else we've got coming up for you. And Tanu, I know that we spoke very briefly at the very start. You have an event coming up very soon.
Yeah, so because we stretched out our SYP mentorship events that we usually have every year. They're usually before the scheme starts, but we're going to spread them out during the duration of the scheme. So our next event is SYP Ahead, how to get ahead in your career, just like how I described previously. And it's powered by Book Machine. So we've partnered up with them to host these 3 events. And the next one will be, after that would be SYP Launch. Obviously, everybody who's looking for a job or who just wants to keep in touch with the industry and is already in their first or second jobs, we have our annual conference coming up, and there's just so many exciting events and panels planned. So I hope you book a ticket for that as well. And yeah, I think we've just finished with our SYP Careers Cafe, which I hope was, it was pretty informational and amazing. So we're gonna, hopefully next year with a new committee, we can make sure that these events are somehow balanced online and offline. So yeah, those are the future plans. And our mentorship scheme again will open in spring. So you can apply then for London.
Yeah, and I think what was great about the CareerCast series very recently was that you did go through literally all of the departments, which I think
Yes.
is quite rare, because I know quite often people say, oh, I went into publishing thinking I wanted to be an editor, I didn't know that this other department existed. And also that it was specifically for people in the sort of first 5 years of their careers, or like the early kind of years. It wasn't just for
Yes.
people looking to get in, it also had advice
Yes.
looking to get ahead. And I think that was one of our sort of aims as a whole for the committees and organisation this year, that we didn't want it to just be about people who are looking to get into publishing, although we of course really value that group. We also technically is basically the kind of first 10 years, so we want to make sure there is that sort of more kind of mid-level moving up kind of advice.
That was one of our aims this year. So if anybody hasn't seen, you can go back and check all the career cafes. It does give you not just entry level, but a senior mid-level view of the entire, of any stream, all streams, and hopefully that helps. But it's really, everybody comes in here with like, I've so many, and if, me included, that I want to be in editorial, and that's the closest way. No offense to editorial, but there's so much cool stuff out there, and like, oh, you just have, please do keep an open mind when you're applying for into. I would really stress on that. You think you want to do editorial, great, but make sure you are sure that you don't want to do the other stuff, and then go for editorial or whatever it is that you have chosen. But yeah.
Yeah, and Jo, what have you got coming up?
So we've still running our book club. So the last one we did was the Diary of a Young Naturalist, and obviously
won the Wainwright Prize. Yeah, great time.
I don't think we had anything to do with that, obviously. Hey?
No, it's not a coincidence.
So we always try and make the book club either a book that is published in the Southwest or by a writer in the Southwest, preferably both sometimes. So obviously we tend to do a kind of poll in advance, so please do follow SYP Southwest, get involved on that in Twitter. We are running our monthly SYP Southwest socials, which is a virtual event at the moment. We would love one day for it to be an in-person event, but who knows when those things happen again. But that's just a really good opportunity for our members to just get together and literally chat about anything. And it's really nice, actually. People are very honest, often turn up and go, they've got particular work problems, or they're looking for jobs and they're kind of feeling a bit frustrated about how it's going, and the kind of sharing of advice on that has been really rewarding. We ran a careers day a while back, and we're hoping to start doing a few careers clinics. I do quite a lot of sort of CV advice anyway in my professional role, so I'm hoping to put myself out there for some CV clinics for people in the forthcoming months that people can book into, and just get some free CV advice, because I know there are lots of people out there job searching, and again that can be for people who are looking to get into, or people who are actually, let's be really honest here, there have been a number of people who have probably had issues with redundancy lately, etc., and actually just need a hand, and that's what we're here for. You know, so that advice is there. Please reach out. You can DM us if you're struggling. We get loads of kind of questions like that, and we're always really happy to answer them. I think, as April said earlier, we're all volunteers, so it can take a while to answer stuff, so please bear with us. Like, if you haven't heard back for a couple of days, don't kind of despair that you're not going to hear from us. It's just that we are running probably multiple full-time jobs and things of our own at the same time as doing this, so it can take time, but we're definitely here for all of those kind of things. And we're also really keen to hear from our members about the kind of things that they would like to have in terms of events moving forward, particularly now that we're in the virtual space. So if anybody has ideas for stuff, then that would be great, and we're hopefully going to run a few skills workshops as well later in the year.
Yeah, and I think that's one real benefit of this sort of time. And I know sort of at the start of the year, one of our aims was actually to do more kind of virtual and digital events sort of right in January, but I feel like the whole lockdown kind of sort of really forced us to sort of expedite that, and really we didn't have the choice to hold in person, so we kind of really went for it, and that's something that we've been expanding. Liz, I know, how would you say that you have found that sort of move to digital events? And
yeah, I mean, for us, it's been a blessing in disguise, really. It's been really good, actually, because as I said earlier, the North covers a very large area and transport isn't always fantastic. It's quite difficult to get from Durham to Manchester for an hour's event and then go back again. You just can't do it. It's not affordable. So it's been good that we could offer, you know, our last event. I know it was our first one of the year, but we could offer that to anyone that wanted to come. And that was really exciting, actually, to see so many people who could attend, because usually it's quite restricted having, obviously, to travel. So it's been good for us. And I think we are definitely going to move forward with that and set up more regular events online. Obviously, when we hopefully are allowed back out in the wild in the future, we might be able to do some more events. But as a committee, majority of us are in Manchester, but we do have a scatter between Leeds and Sheffield as well. So yeah, we're trying, you know, we want to partner up with some of the universities. We've got a huge publishing masters at UCLan. There's obviously one at Manchester. There's many that I'm probably forgetting now, but we are in touch with obviously a lot of universities who have other avenues into publishing, you know, so I think it's hopefully in the future we can join you for different events, but at the moment virtual for us is working well. So yeah, so that's exciting. We've hoping we can attend some university, like have lost all my words there, didn't I? Hoping to have a good conversation with a lot of the university lecturers and their students about how to get into publishing, because as we said before, you don't necessarily need an English degree or a publishing master's or anything. It comes from all over. And I also think that, as Joe said earlier, and I think we've all said, it's not all editorial. Obviously, a big part of publishing is, don't get me wrong, but equally there are many different departments who offer so many different options, and it's all a big puzzle and it all fits together. You can't have one without the other. So we're hoping to offer that opportunity virtually with some northern faces and some northern voices. So yes, hopefully that's our next step.
yeah, there's a great indie scene over in the north, especially around like Manchester.
Yes,
great.
yeah, so we're hoping to spoiler, have an indie event before Christmas, so that'll be good, because yeah, there's a big Northern Fiction Alliance up here, down here, wherever you are in the world here. So yes, so it's exciting, and a lot of our committee have got experience on the and past committee have got a lot of experience in the indie scene in Manchester, so well, and around obviously, but yeah, so it's exciting, and now obviously with the big announcements of Harper and Hachette, and if anyone else is following, hopefully they are breaking some more barriers there, which is good.
Absolutely, and just on location, I know this often confuses some people, but when you sign up to an SYP membership, you're not just committing to one specific region. So if you buy a membership, that gets you discounted or free entry into events in all the branches. So if you study, say, in Scotland, but you actually are from York, if you're going home in between terms, you can attend events really across the country, or like even from the comfort of your own home, as we're doing now, because I think we're all agreed that digital events and recorded events are here to stay. And on that note, April, actually, you have a role specifically on your committee for digital content. Did you want to speak a bit more about that and sort of just how that ties into what plans you've got kind of coming up in general?
Yeah, sure. Because I think earlier on it was kind of mentioned, you know, how have people found, you know, SYP activities have been going on, you know, since the lockdown. And, you know, obviously it was a big surprise for all of us, but quite luckily for our team, we were kind of thinking anyway that we had so much really good content going on at, you know, events that were in Oxford. You know, a lot of them were really well attended. Sometimes though people can't go because of other commitments, you know, having to travel in, and we just thought it would be great to have somebody on board to kind of deal with digitizing what we're doing in person, making it a little bit more accessible, kind of extending the life of our events as well. So that came in really useful. So Charlotte, our multimedia officer, she kind of earlier on in the year, she was tasked with launching our podcast first of all, and that's still very active and ongoing. We have 10 episodes now, and they're really broad. You can access the podcast via Spotify. You just have to look up SYP Oxford, because it's on there, called the SYP Oxford podcast. And there are episodes to do with how to make yourself employable during lockdown, you know, getting insights on how literary agencies work, you know, what the student scene is kind of like if you were interested in doing a publishing MA or studying that at university from the outset. We have other subject-based episodes as well to do with rights or sales. So yeah, I really recommend subscribing, having a listen, because that's really useful. Something else that we've been doing, especially with the focus on digital, is we've launched a couple of YouTube series. So the SYP has a channel which you can find if you just look up the Society of Young Publishers on YouTube. And we have two series that are going on at the moment. One is Booksellers and Storytellers, and the other is Industry Trailblazers. And essentially what they're looking at is, you know, their ongoing series. So we upload episodes from time to time and we announce them on our social channels. Booksellers and Storytellers is focusing on publishing adjacent organisations. And we've got another episode actually upcoming, which is on Little Door Books. We're speaking with Alan Windrum about the publishing that happens there, and that's, you know, episode 3, I think. So that's all really exciting. The digital side of things, you know, from a more permanent perspective. But then at the moment, obviously, we're also hosting our events over Zoom for the most part. So we have a monthly book club. And the next one will be on the 19th of October, and we are going to announce the book for that shortly. We also have an interview masterclass coming up, which is very exciting. We'll be announcing proper details on that, but essentially we're foreseeing that that will be a workshop that's really hands-on, skills-based as well. So that's great. And I guess the other thing that we've been doing in the recent months is we've been uploading blog posts to the SYP blog. So if you go to the SYP website, there are posts on there from all of the branches. But we had one in August, which followed up a workshop that our friend Carlos did on public speaking, and it was particularly orientated on if you're working or doing interviews over Zoom, you know, how you can keep your audience engaged, you know, kind of top tips for that. And that blog post kind of summarizes what went on in that event. Our inclusivity officer has done a blog post on the gender pay gap, which I recommend reading, especially if you're applying for jobs and you want to be showing yourself as switched on to issues in the industry, because I'd say diversity is one important issue and the gender pay gap is another. For the diversity side of things, you can look at our Publishing Voices YouTube series as well, but I'll stop plugging all of the stuff that we've got going on. But it's just been a really exciting time actually to not just deliver the usual content that we would have been wanting to put on in person, but also getting that extra prompt to get ourselves sorted with a digital solution, and just making sure that we are still very active and helping people out, because it's a really difficult time. And I think anyone in the publishing industry would say everyone is so lovely, really helpful and supportive when it comes to you know, looking to develop or progress. So I hope we've been able to deliver some continuity to the membership.
Definitely. And Sarah, what about in Scotland? Very briefly, what have you got coming up?
Well, yeah, I would agree with what everyone else has said about how it's kind of been a prompt to diversify what we do online. And I definitely think kind of a blended model of events is going to be what we'll do going forward, you know, even when we are allowed to see each other kind of in real life, because I think it's kind of an issue of accessibility. It just opens up the events to so many people. And especially being in Scotland, we are guilty of having most of our events in the Central Belt, and that, you know, if you're in the Highlands and Islands or wherever, you're under Scotland's remit, but it's very, very difficult for you to get to Edinburgh for our event. So we've been doing monthly Twitter chats, SYP chat, which is always themed around like a kind of a broad topic. So the one we just did was themed around book events, because we were all extremely sad that the Edinburgh Book Festival wasn't on. And we've been dusting off our Instagram account and doing some Instagram live chats. The next one will be between me and our finance guy James, because we're both booksellers. So we're going to be talking about again, some publishing adjacent parts of the industry. And what else? We'll be doing a quiz at the end of this month, if everyone's not suffering too badly from Zoom quiz fatigue, because we would usually have a welcome event for the Napier and Stirling students, but obviously we won't be able to do that in real life. So hopefully that'll be a similarly kind of a social event, and a way to kind of network informally and just have fun and meet, the incoming new professionals to be in the region. And we are always thinking about the conference. We still don't know, nobody knows what the events landscape will look like in spring, but hopefully we'll be able to stage the conference in real life, and as I say, use a blended model for it, but who knows, we'll see. But that's another thing that is coming up. And we started a book club as well, which I mentioned earlier, and the next meeting I think is in the first week of October. Book yet to be revealed. So that's what we're up to in Scotland.
Great. I feel like it's almost a bit for me to say this now, but the UK also has a book club, which the next meeting is on Tuesday. It will be The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. But I think for us, really, for the UK committee, and again, this isn't just a UK thing, it involves everyone, but we're excitingly redesigning our website, which I think we all agree that there are loads of things that I know aren't great about it. Like, we're aware that it can be quite slow, there's a lot of outdated information, and it's not easiest to navigate, but we are going to be working on that. And this was something that involved feedback from all of the committees, but I'd like to say a special thank you to Ellen, the UK web officer, who has been sort of overseeing that project. We did have a few questions that came in during the registration about parts of our website. One of them was about the jobs board. The question mentioned that a lot of the deadlines seem to have passed in the jobs board, and would we be updating it? I am just going to say this now, we are going to be getting rid of the jobs board as part of the redesign. We just felt that we didn't have the resources to be able to kind of accurately say that it was a benefit that people should pay for, when we knew that they could get that information for free from other sites who kind of collated that information sort of better in that format. But that's not to say that we'll stop advertising jobs. They will still be on our social media and in our newsletters, of course, as long as they have the salary included in the job advert. Is something that we're very keen on. One of the other things that we are working on is that we're sort of looking to partner with National Union of Journalists and sort of really help to inform people more about the benefits of joining a union and sort of how they go about that process. And part of that other things that we're looking at introducing sponsored memberships, because while we kind of try and keep our fees low as possible, we know that kind of what's affordable to us might not necessarily be affordable to other people. So we really want to kind of have a place where people can kind of still become a member but have access, which means they don't necessarily have to be paying that cost themselves if they're not in a position to. And I think sort of on that note, I just did want to talk today about sort of what we're doing as an organisation to try and be as sort of inclusive as possible. And I know that some people are a bit kind of sick of these sort of buzzwords sort of around like diversity and inclusion, but it is an issue that I think we all need to address. And this isn't something that sort of just started this year. Like, as an organisation, sort of previous year committees, they have all been sort of working on this, but of course there is still work to be done. So for those of you who don't know, we do have inclusivity committee within the SYP, which is headed by the UK inclusivity officer Iram, and each of the branches has a rep who kind of, and then they sort of like meet together and discuss kind of what we can be doing to kind of be more inclusive, and sort of like as a sounding board if anyone has any sort of questions. And one of the projects they are working on is a handbook for committees, and that will include things like how can we make events more accessible in terms of things like making sure there's wheelchair access, there are gender neutral toilets, that on social media that we're capitalising hashtags and sort of using alt text to make it friendly for screen readers, and it will just cover quite a broad range of categories. But I really want to just kind of talk briefly about what kind of individual committees have been doing, have done, and are doing to kind of address the issue of diversity and inclusion. So why don't we start with Scotland?
The thing about venues has always been really important to us as a committee, and it's quite a challenge in a city like Edinburgh, which is kind of, you know, built with lots of cobbles and narrow staircases everywhere. But we've always made a very conscious effort to make sure we have accessible venues where we can, and mostly it is achievable. Even if it means like we have to pay a little bit more money to hire a venue, then that's something we've been doing for at least as long as I've been on the committee, this is my 3rd year. As I mentioned briefly earlier, having events online is an important step towards inclusive events and making them more accessible. And we started doing transcripts of all our events as well, which I think is something that quite a lot of it is kind of labour intensive, but it's really worthwhile, and it does make it accessible to a whole new audience, which is really important to us. And there's that, and there's programming our events thoughtfully and making sure that we're kind of hearing from the broadest possible range of voices. And I think we changed committee in April, and we didn't do blind applications then, but it's something we'll do for the next round of applications.
Although we did change the wording, as I recall, because I think a lot of us kind of felt that the altercation pool was quite a broad question, and we found that people responded to it in very different ways. So I think if I remember correctly, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something like kind of tell us why you want this role, why you like the idea of this role, or something like that. And I feel the issue with that is that it's so broad that if you're not someone who's necessarily used to these sorts of applications, you might not know exactly what people are looking for. So we found that some people, for instance, and also that kind of came through in the length of people's answers. So some people might just say they like the SYP, they attend events, whereas others were really a lot more detailed about like work experience they had that was relevant, kind of what ideas they had that they would do if they were in that role. And I think that really is an issue of accessibility and inclusion, in that if you're used to kind of that system or knowing how to like play or tailor your answer to that to your advantage, then you're in a better place to move forward. So we wanted to make our questions more specific so that people were kind of trying to come from a more level and fair playing field.
That's true. I'd forgotten that was this year.
It was like a long time ago. I feel like
strange.
it was kind of like right at the start of lockdown. But on applications, you mentioned sort of blind applications, and actually I know that some committees already do that, have been doing that for a while, and it is something that we are looking to kind of roll out consistently across all branches later this year. April, I know that Oxford have been doing them for a bit longer than some of the committees. Do you have any thoughts you want to share on that?
Yeah, I think it works really well. We've done it for the mentorship scheme in recent years, and we also do it for our committee applications. And the way that we've always managed it is, we've got a third party to come involved and to remove any mention of, specific job titles that could identify someone, at companies as well, and just really making it so you still have the core of the answer, but there aren't biases towards people who you might already know, or if somebody's talking in more general terms about transferable experience, that doesn't look more wishy-washy than someone who's talking about their experience in a particular job, for instance. It kind of levels the playing field a lot more. I think something that we were considering doing as well, because I'm sure some people could feel a little bit anxious about that happening, is potentially asking people to write their applications from the outset, in a way that doesn't give away any identifying information, because there's a lot that you can say that will convey enthusiasm. You can reference roles and whether they're paid ones or, bookselling experience or extracurricular activities at university, you know, that's all transferable, and there's really no need to know who specifically has that experience. We can just assess everything on an equal basis. And something that was quite interesting this year, just very briefly, was we have a lot of students on our committee. So it really does show that, you know, when it comes around to committee applications as well, you don't have to be someone established in the industry, you know, in your second or third job already. We're really proud of the fact that we've got students who are finishing their MAs or who are you know, studying other courses, who have been able to make a really great contribution to what we've done this year. And moving forward, when they apply for jobs, they'll be able to say that they've been an events officer or a student liaison. So yeah, I really recommend it. It's something that we've been doing for a while, and it works very well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part, that you don't have to currently be working in publishing. So on the UK committee, we've got people who work for like local council, people who work for Vodafone, people who work in sort of like an opera house, and I think they bring a different viewpoint to be really helpful. So for instance, when we were talking about descriptions for like the volunteer positions you can apply for, the person who worked at council could speak about how specific their sort of sector tended to like write roles. It was really clear from the outset what the duties would be, whereas I know in publishing, job descriptions can vary so much and be so vague. I think we all have experience of that. So
definitely. And in terms of what we as a committee have been doing as well for inclusivity, just more generally, you know, it's been mentioned that in normal times when you can meet up, we're very mindful of what venues are accessible. So, you know, typically we'll go for places that are near the bus station in Oxford city centre. So, you know, people who need to access the city in that way can. You know, rooms on the ground floors. We try to limit the number of socials that we do in pubs as well, just to make sure there isn't that, you know, those barriers for people. And since things have gone digital, you know, we've been making sure that when we've uploaded our videos to YouTube, for instance, that we're doing them with captions, which, you know, again, it takes time, like Sarah was saying, with some of her initiatives, but it's really worthwhile. And I think that digital will be a key part of, you know, really ensuring that we're widening participation, that everyone has access. And, you know, for a long time when we've had live events, we've done live tweeting, got this event's being live tweeted now. So there's kind of no unnecessary barriers to people getting this information, although it's great when people show up to the events because you get that connection with the membership and you can get the networking element as well.
Definitely. I am a bit conscious of the time, so I think I'm sort of not going to go around everyone, but just for the remaining kind of chairs, is there anything you wanted to add specifically on the kind of initiatives and things that you have done in the past and that you are planning to sort of work on what we can do to be more inclusive and diverse? I know sort of thinking about where we advertise application posts and events is one thing that I know that we're sort of looking ahead to do.
Just quickly, I think we have two inclusivity officers for London, and both of them are responsible for just saying how people are included in events, even in the virtual. So just like April said, subtitles. And when it was pre-COVID and offline, it was accessibility, pubs, book clubs to be held at different places, morning coffee meets instead of evening pub meets, and yeah, we made sure it was live tweeted. I think it's suddenly easy for some, you know, people who couldn't attend events, but virtually we also have to be careful about who can hear, who can listen, and who can react at the same time. We certainly have lost that element of getting everybody in a place together, having that energy, having that passion. I mean, as a student, I would leave an SYP event feeling sort of really charged, like, yes, I'm going to be there someday. I'm going to be one of those people someday. And it was, so I hope to, we hope as a branch to get that going next year and make sure that that socializing element is always present at events.
Definitely. I think if so just on the kind of applications that we have touched on this year, I don't want to say too much sort of about them now, because I know that we're still sort of not quite thinking that far ahead yet, but applications for most of our committees will open in November. I know not all. Sarah, you mentioned in Scotland you tend to open around March because of committee. Joe, you're opening in November as well, I think, but some roles.
We are
Yes.
opening in November, and we'll be really excited. We want to expand the committee, so we'll have quite a few roles available. New roles.
Yeah.
And we're really, really keen to get people involved in the Southwest Committee, because we cover a really big area, and right now there's a core of about 3 of us who are holding the committee together.
Doing an honourable job, considering I think how many events you have been running.
So yeah, so we're really keen to ensure that the committee is a bit more sustainable going forward, with a wider group of people involved in it, to increase what we can actually offer to the Southwest community. So yeah, there'll be a lot of opportunities. Please keep your eyes peeled on Twitter and the website for applications. And it's such a great thing to be able to add to your CV. As somebody who spends a lot of time looking at people's CVs, it is a really, really great thing. And I know of somebody who actually spent quite a lot of time talking about it in their first job interview and said it was one of the things that made a big difference to them getting the job. So it is worth it.
Yeah, I think especially when you're kind of able to do things that you wouldn't necessarily do in your day job, like events, for instance. Like I know I wouldn't be running events in my day job, but that's something that the SYP does do a lot of. Liz, would you say there's anything very quickly, any tips you would give people applying to be on the committee?
Just be open, I think, and just generally what it is you want, because you might not necessarily you might want to be, I don't know, events officer, but then that might not be possible, or it might be filled with somebody else. But there are a lot of different options, I think, in the SYP, and I think if you can also see what's missing in a committee. So our committee is very small, but has gone from small, and it's growing ever so slightly. And I think if someone can see something's missing and it needs to be added, then just bring it up. And I think it's we had in one of our applications last year for this committee, it was we just need to do a bit more like social, on social, and I think this year we've definitely made sure that that's apparent, and hopefully everyone can see our work on Twitter behind the scenes. But no, I think why you want it, and I think what you can bring to it as well as a committee. And as Amy said, I think there's a lot of people in a committee that makes up that not necessarily are in publishing, or they have been, or they've moved out, or they're doing something different, or they're not even in it at all. And I don't think it necessarily matters, as long as you know what you want to bring and why you want to be there, then yeah, apply.
Right. Yeah, I'm just going to move on to some of the questions that came from the audience tracks event. And I know all the other kind of chairs have done a great job at responding very quickly in the chat to some of them. Most of them actually, in fact. Just to quickly go through the ones that we quite got to. So we had one on presenting freelance work when you're freelance editing work when you're applying to an editorial assistant role. I know we said that this Q&A was more about running on the SYP, but I know there are quite a few of you who do events specifically for people who freelance, and to help them. Like I know Tanu, I know for instance, like the old co-chair actually started a freelancing network.
Oh yeah, they have, and I think the best advice I can give for freelance editing work is to keep in touch with people and speak about your work. Who are you working with? You can write that in your cover letter. I'm not sure if this is an entry role that you would apply for, or because you have that freelance experience, you'd probably, I'm not sure, but I would just say that you should list down your work and achievements. Your CV should scream your freelance work. I think your CV is like the place to be like, all that I've accomplished, and your cover letter is like, what have you learned from it? So I think that's, unless anybody has a better tip.
I mean, sure, Joe, you mentioned that you were you do run and will run future like kind of workshops, application. I'm sure that's something that can be covered in that as well. So you've definitely done that. So So we've had somebody who's interested in a career in publishing, but is currently still studying, so is not actively applying for jobs yet. They've asked specifically if it's worthwhile for them to apply for the mentorship this year, but just speaking also generally, we do actually do a lot of things for people who aren't actively applying, but sort of more kind of researching and getting in. So maybe April, would you like to talk a bit about how the SYP can help people in that position?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just think if you were to spend the year attending events, whether it's, kind of looking at the blog post write-ups, whether it's actually going along to the events, following the hashtags on Twitter, you can really get a broad sense of what's happening in the industry currently, and, those kind of hard and fast, answers to questions like, what are the different departments, what does an entry-level position look like in each one, the skills-based workshops as well. I think between all of the different branches and the UK, we are pretty much running events every month that will touch on one or the other. So I think, if someone is wanting to do the mentorship scheme, I don't see any harm in applying that bit sooner, but I wonder if potentially it could be better to just tap into all of our digital content, looking what's on YouTube, looking at the podcast, looking at all of the other events that are going on, really kind of sucking up that information like a sponge. And then if you were to get on the mentorship scheme next year, you can really use that as the opportunity to test your understanding once you've got a better sense of the lay of the land, which areas you might be interested in. So yeah, that was quite vague, but that's probably how I'd answer that question.
Just quickly, we had a question about if it's just the Southwest that are opening up applications for their committee in November. It's not, so London applications will be open, applications for the North will be open, applications for Oxford will be open, applications for the UK and Ireland will also be open. I think Scotland is the only one who won't be having applications, but that's purely because they do their conference in around spring, and as Eric pointed out, it's a huge amount of work, so it's just easier that way to kind of make it so that it's sort of done by the time the new committee are appointed. And just to reiterate, with the UK committee, it doesn't really matter where you're based, but you can be based anywhere. You could be based in Wales, you could be based in Lincoln. We do a lot of our meetings virtually. Liz, just on that kind of regional thing, how would you sort of describe people applying to like a regional branch and where they should sort of ideally be based generally? Because you accept obviously both students and people who work in the North.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, this year it's happened to be that we are mainly in Manchester, but that's not necessarily, that's just hasn't been luck, to be honest. But yeah, apply where you are. If you're in the region of the North, the big region, then please do apply. Obviously we do a lot virtually. Even before lockdown hit, we tend to do phone calls, a WhatsApp group, things like that. So it's always everyone can always attend, and then we tend to tag team the events. And then we previously have we had Leeds, Sheffield, we had Preston hopefully, but then lockdown happened, so that didn't happen. Manchester, we do try and move around as well, so we can get members to come, but also committee members as well. So if you are interested and you are somewhere in the region, then please don't think you can't apply because you're not in the city centre of a particular area. We'll have anyone. Please do apply.
Great. I think we'll sort of wrap up here just because we are approaching the half-8 mark. I think a lot of us get that kind of Zoom fatigue and we don't necessarily want to be here for 2 hours, but hopefully we have covered a lot of ground during this time. And if you do have any remaining questions about anything SYP, you can always email us. For the UK, the email address is sypchair@syp.org.uk, and our Twitter is syp_UK. But all of the regional branches also have their own contact details. And with that, do you want to say any closing thoughts from any of the chairs present, like any one sentence summaries of why people should join the SYP, how they can get in touch, any closing thoughts? Should we start with Jo?
I think I would just say one thing: community. I mean, particularly where we are, you can feel sometimes when you're out on a limb in the southwest and think you're very disconnected from publishing, and actually you're not. You don't have to be, but being part of the SYP will make you feel a much bigger part of the huge community, which, as I think Tani has touched on, it's so lovely. People in publishing are lovely, and they really want to help each other and lift each other up and empower each other. So yeah, kind of that sense of community can be a really, really powerful thing, especially when you're in the regions.
Cool. Anyone else have any last thoughts they want to say?
Yeah, I'd just echo that and say that consider joining the committee next year, consider joining our mentorship, consider joining as a member, come visit. You can speak to anyone that's on the committee anytime you like. You can drop us a message on Twitter. You can email us on our addresses. We're there, and it's wonderful to be a part of community. I can say that because I moved countries. I came here as a student. My first experience was at SYP, and I was like, oh great, I have people who are like me, students, job seekers, and then marketers. So yeah, it's just been awesome, and I just encourage everyone to join.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity as well. Like Amy mentioned earlier on, that if you get a membership, then that applies to all of the different branches. And, you know, in my time, I've worked in Oxford, London, Cambridge. I'm from the Midlands. So the fact that there's a branch home every place I am or have been is really nice. And there's just so many opportunities, whether it's making friends, networking, getting that connection with community, learning more about this industry. And you know, it's just a wealth of opportunity, whether you're attending events, taking part in the mentorship scheme as a mentee or a mentor, you know, kind of engaging with the content, going to conferences that we run. So yeah, I just think there's so much to get out of it, and I can't recommend it enough, which is why this is my second year working on the committee.
Yeah. I feel like this is quite a bad time because I think I
wonder if Amy's internet's just gone at that moment.
It felt like it.
Yeah, it was a timed internet connection. She's just
Was it?
well, it was at the goodbye, so I don't know if she should wait for the goodbye or just hang up on her. But she comes back and she's like, oh well, everyone's left.
I guess we can just say, if this is goodbye, then goodbye. But if it's not, you can always look up SYP on the different channels.
Yeah, lovely meeting everyone from all the branches, by the way. Nice.
Yeah, it's nice to see everyone.
Definitely.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah. And thank you so much for everyone hanging on in there.
Thank you for coming. It's been a long session.
Thank you. Do we go back? Do we press bye?
I think we have to just leave.
I think everyone's leaving.
We've got to cut the cord.
Okay.
Bye,
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.